18 governorship and state assembly elections, political candidates are intensifying campaigns for the polls. The leadership of the All Progressives Congress APC has met with senators-elect and members-elect of the House of Representatives to begin consultations and negotiations for election of principal officers for the 10th National Assembly. On the interview segment for today, we examine how the 2023 presidential election was won and lost, with the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, who is also the principal spokesperson for the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress APC, as our guest. Welcome to Politics Tonight. Stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back to the program. The leadership of the All Progressives Congress APC has met with senators-elect of the Senate and members-elect of the House of Representatives to begin consultations and negotiations ahead of the emergence of principal officers in the 10th National Assembly. The leadership of the party and lawmakers-elect said the zoning arrangement has not been considered as they are focused on the March 18 governorship and House of Assembly elections, which they are working to win. The president-elect, Bola Tinubu, was represented by the vice president-elect, Kasim Shettima, while the APC national chairman and other members of the National Working Committee, NWC, were also in attendance. TVC News State House correspondent Femi Akonde reports on the outcome of the meeting.
APC lawmakers-elect arriving at the banquet hall of the presidential villa for a meeting with their party's leadership. This is the first interface since their victory on the ballot and after receiving their certificates of return. The party's leadership is making proactive moves ahead of the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly in June. For the All Progressives Congress, it is once beaten, twice shy, as they try to avoid the rancorous emergence of the leadership of the 8th National Assembly.
And one of the burning issues that is in the front burner now has to do with the leadership of the National Assembly. We don't want to be preemptive. I know first and foremost is to welcome ourselves and congratulate ourselves on the resounding victory recorded on February 25.
On the issue of zoning that you mentioned, yes, we did talk about, we're not there yet. We have another election coming up this weekend, and we needed to make sure that everybody goes back home. Roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty.
It's a family affair. This is not the right time to talk about zoning. All we need now is to consolidate on our victory. We have won the presidential, and we should be able to at least take a minimum of 30 states.
As the party begins to fine-tune the process of electing principal officers that will steer the affairs of the parliament, lawmakers have also set high expectations as they look forward to settling into the business of lawmaking as soon as the parliament is inaugurated.
This is the first time in the history of our democracy that we're going to be having representation of the floor through, this high number of political parties. But the good thing about it is it will foster better and greater negotiation, and it would also ensure that overriding national interests prevail much more than party interests.
National Assembly, and more particularly the 10th Senate, will work in consonance with the wishes and aspirations of Nigerians that gave them the sacred mandate to represent them, with a view to delivering the dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of the people.
The issue of zoning, which is usually a political factor in determining who gets what, when and how, was deliberately avoided at the meeting. The party insists that winning the second leg of the general election is their topmost priority for now. The 10th National Assembly will not be a tea party for the All Progressives Congress. It will be the most diverse legislature in Nigeria's democratic history, as 8 political parties will have representatives in the parliament. It will also be interesting to see the quality of bills, motions and debates that will occupy the time of these lawmakers. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
The leadership and governorship candidates of 9 political parties in Lagos under the auspices of the Alliance of Registered Political Parties have endorsed and declared their support for the re-election bid of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his deputy Obafemi Hamzat in the March 18 governorship election in the state. The political parties, which include YPP, APP, ADP, APM, ZLP, SDP, NNPP and PRP made the declaration at an event in Ikeja, Lagos. Speaking on behalf of the political parties, the governorship candidate of YPP in the state, Adebayo Ajayi, said Lagos is best entrusted in the hands of competent and experienced leaders like Governor Sanwo-Olu.
We cannot sacrifice the various landmark achievements of the present administration scattered all over the state on the altar of bitter politicking. The governor's consistency as a progressive Democrat is worthy of due commendation, and continuity is the key. This support is born out of love and desire for a greater Lagos, which Babajide Sanwo-Olu has set the pace and desire to drive it to fruition. We wish to seize this opportunity to inform and urge all our supporters across Lagos State to vote massively on Saturday, the 18th March, for Babajide Sanwo-Olu as governor and his deputy, Quadri Obafemi Hamzat.
The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has appealed to residents of Edo State to replicate the victory recorded in the state during the presidential election by voting for the candidate of the party in the coming House of Assembly elections. Obi made the appeal in Benin City, the Edo State capital, during his meeting with Labour Party supporters. He also urged the occasion to call on Nigerians to vote en masse for all Labour Party candidates on Saturday, the 18th of March.
Labour Party supporters. He also used They
have a speculation that our candidates. We want to say clearly that our candidates are not straight down. We also want to make it categorically clear that no Labour Party sponsor any other candidate to the party. Yes, who is sure? They are saying the other election. They are not having a treat of our candidates. So we can start this journey as a new Nigeria. That is going to do things differently. So rest assured, we will make sure that Labour Party people that are elected in office will do things differently.
Let's take a short break, and when we return, it will be time to speak with the Minister of State for Labour and Employment, Festus Keyamo, who is also the principal spokesperson of the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress APC on how the 2023 presidential election was won and lost. Please stay with us.
It's always a great morning on the TVC Breakfast show.
Thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
With the array of stories that matter and what's behind them.
As you say, the first blow indicates the direction of government.
Tell us what really is going on between your union and the federal government.
Once it's generated, you don't use it, it's waste.
We are not even sure whether we have a strategy for security.
Are you saying that there was nothing wrong in that?
Was he the one driving the taxi?
Answer the question.
Refill your morning with all you need to know.
Like the
yes, just mundane lyrics.
Yes.
How does that fit into your
scheme of events or duties right now?
No chief of staff, no general has the right to call a governor to order. The governor has been elected by his people.
Start your day right, because this is the breakfast show that adds to your breakfast. TVC Breakfast, weekdays at 7 a.m. only on TVC News.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
There is always more to a story than the screaming headline. The part of a story that is not told casts a shadow. It's like the part of an object that is not reached by light. On TVC News, I'm able to explore the many angles there are to a story, talking to stakeholders, asking the difficult questions, and digging for facts. I believe the viewers are able to make a better decision if they're well informed and understand not just a part, but the complete story. TVC News, first with breaking news.
It's the 7th successive general election in Nigeria's 23 years of unbroken democratic rule.
With more than 93 million registered voters, this is Africa's largest election, having over 75% of voters between the age of 18 and 49.
This election is a massive operation, with voting in over 176,000 polling units across 774 local government areas. You need a station like TVC News for minute-by-minute account.
From the presidential and national assembly elections down to the governorship and state houses of assembly poll,
We are on ground every step of the way with live coverage across the 36 states and the FCT.
It is an election like no other. So stay tuned to TVC News for in-depth coverage, breaking news, exclusive interviews, and experienced analysis to help you make sense of it all.
Join the TVC News Decision 2023 studios for real-time election news, results and reactions live on all our platforms from our more than 50 field reporters across the country.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia, January 15, 1929. The son of a Baptist minister, King received a doctorate degree in theology and in 1955 helped organize the first major protest of the African American civil rights movement, the successful Montgomery bus boycott. King participated in and led marches for the right to vote, desegregation, labor rights, and other civil rights. He advocated civil disobedience and nonviolent opposition against segregation in the South, influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. The peaceful protests he led throughout the American South were often met with violence. Nonetheless, Dr. King and his supporters were persistent and the movement gained momentum. Dr. King was a powerful orator. He appealed to Christian and American ideals and won growing support from the federal government and Northern White. In 1963, Bayard Rustin and A. Philip Randolph led the massive march on Washington for jobs and freedom. The event's grand finale was King's famous I Have a Dream speech. 250,000 100,000 people gathered outside the Lincoln Memorial to hear the steering speech. In 1964, the Civil Rights Movement achieved two of its greatest successes: the ratification of the 24th Amendment, which abolished the poll tax, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibited racial discrimination in employment and education and outlawed racial segregation in public facilities. In the same year, King became the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize. In the late 1960s, King openly criticized U.S. involvement in Vietnam and turned his efforts to winning economic rights for poor Americans. He was a leader of the American Civil Rights Movement and organized a number of peaceful protests as head of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, including the March on Washington in 1963. He was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968.
Itchy, greasy, and smelly braids can be a thing of the past. Introducing the new Ruwa braids from Expression. Made with 100% Aquatex fiber from Canicolon, the new Ruwa braids from Expression is extremely fast drying and perfect for friction-free washing. Stay dry this season with the new Ruwa braids from Expression, now available in pre-stretch and regular braid variants and in beauty shops near you.
Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the guest of the day. I am now joined by the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, who is also the spokesperson for the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress, APC. Keyamo, a senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN, and fellow of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, is a lawyer, a columnist, and human rights activist. In April 2018, Keyamo was appointed as the Director of Strategic Communications of the 2019 re-election bid of President Muhammadu Buhari. He was appointed the Minister of State for Niger Delta in 2019 before he was redeployed to the Ministry of Labor and Employment by President Muhammadu Buhari. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, now let me start by congratulating you on the APC victory in the presidential election. How will you describe the battle?
Well, thank you so much. Congratulations to all Nigerians because the eventual winner of the election, which is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president-elect, actually got his mandate from a cross-section of Nigerians from north, south, east, and west. He had votes from all parts of the country. So it's congratulations to all Nigerians. The battle was fierce. Nigerians saw that themselves. At times, it was a bit hot. At times, it was a bit tricky. But at the end of the day, God has a purpose for this country. God has a purpose for Asiwaju. And that is why today he's president-elect. And so we'll give all thanks to God Almighty.
All right, so despite huge challenges, the APC presidential candidate triumphed. How did APC win the presidential election?
Pardon me, how did we win it?
Yes, despite the challenges you mentioned.
Well, I'm sure you have tried to look at the results of the election. And it is clear, despite all the noise going on, especially by the opposition, it is clear that the voting pattern revealed by the results clearly reflects the type of campaigns carried out by some candidates of other parties. Now, we simply won that election by presenting a candidate that's a Pan-Nigerian candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Asiwaju won his votes, like I said, from all the 6 regions in the country. It was only Asiwaju that won at least one state in 5 different regions in the country, except, of course, one particular region. The three leading candidates had 12 states each. Atiku Abubakar had 9 states in the north and 3 in the south. Peter Obi had 9 states in the south and 3 in the north central, not even in the core north. But Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu had 6 states in the north and 6 states in the south. It clearly shows you the kind of spread and even, the balanced votes that he had from different parts of the country. Again, if you look at the results, from all different parts of the country, Asiwaju won 3 regions outright. Atiku had 1 region, only one region. And then Peter Obi won 2 regions. In all the regions, Asiwaju came second at least. Asiwaju never took third. How? That is why he won the election. Because even in regions where he did not win, he came a close second. And in regions where he won by wide bet. For example, the southwest region. So Asiwaju was the only candidate that had the votes across Nigeria, that received the votes of different sections, different demography of Nigerians. And while other candidates could not cut across certain parts of Nigeria to get the blessings of those parts of Nigeria. Now, it is no surprise, therefore, that it was only Asiwaju, the president-elect, that achieved the constitutional requirements of 2/3 of the states of the federation, of 1/4 of the votes in 2/3 of the states of the federation. I think Asiwaju got about 30 states, 1/4 in 30 states. Atiku Abubakar got about 21, and Peter Obi got about 16 or 17 states, the required 1/4 of the votes in those states. So it is obvious. There was only one winner at the end of the day. There was even no 2. There was only one winner. There was nobody who came close. That's the point I'm making. And there's even nobody, whether they go to court or anything, that can go to court and say, claims that he was also the winner and should be returned. Nobody can claim that.
All right, Mr. Keyamo, it's also important for us to talk about some of the surprises we saw during the presidential election, like the results in Lagos and Kano. What was responsible for that? Because we saw the APC losing up to 12 states.
Well, the Kano situation is very obvious. They had the son of the soil running, Rabi Kwankwanso running, and so naturally by the sentiments, that pervade our political terrain, they went with their son. But then, there's something very significant about the Kano election result. Despite going with their son, a large portion of Kano indigents still saw Asiwaju as their own. It was even Atiku Abubakar, who is a northerner, that they did not even vote for. He could not even get about even 10% of the votes in Kano. That's very significant. The difference between Asiwaju, that came second in Kano, and Atiku Abubakar was about 500,000 votes, about 500,000 votes. That's the kind of wide, bet that Asiwaju, the president-elect, gave Atiku Abubakar in Kano. So, at the end of the day, and then of course, the Lagos vote is attributable to the fact that we have a mixture of different ethnicity, different types of people, in Lagos State. And so you cannot see Lagos really as a state that houses a particular ethnic group. So Lagos is a mixture of different ethnic groups and different people and different religions also, because I think religion played a part in it. But even despite that, you can see that the difference wasn't so much at all. So even in areas where Asiwaju supposedly lost, it was very, very close. Asiwaju is grounded in all parts of this country.
All right, still talking about surprises. Mr. Keyamo, I'm sure the election results in your state, Delta State, also came to you as a surprise. Am I correct?
Well, yes and no. Well, we knew, of course, beforehand that the Labour Party would make inroads into the southeast and the south-south. But the most interesting, let me tell you the most interesting thing about this. Now, the most interesting about this is that those inroads that the Labour Party made into Delta, the South states and the Southeast states, they were inroads into the, PDP strongholds. So they hardly scratched the APC. As far as I'm concerned, in most parts of Delta State, go and look at the results. In fact, we got 2 senators from Delta, Delta State, Delta Central and the Delta South. So even in Delta Central, we won for the APC. In my polling unit, for example, I delivered for the APC in the senatorial elections. We won. So the Labour Party actually made inroads into the South, which includes Delta State, mostly because a particular candidate whipped up religious sentiment. It was purely religious sentiment that they used to enter those states. But then, like I said, there's a limit to how much you can push religious sentiment in the country. You can see that it helps that candidate in a particular part of the country, pushing and preaching and campaigning on religious sentiment. But how far did he go? And if he runs 20 times, if he contests the election 20 times, there's a certain settled demography of this country that will not change. You cannot penetrate all parts of this country by relying solely on religious sentiments. A sitting president tried it and failed. And that demography, that particular sentiment will not go away in this country. The more you rely on religious sentiment, the more some other parts of the country become very suspicious of you and they will not vote for you. So that is why you can see that you did not see Asiwaju in any mosque or church or trying to look for votes. He just talked to Nigerians, he begged Nigerians, and they voted for him. So the vote, coming back to your question, we are not surprised that Labour came to the South and the South to take away the votes of the PDP.
All right, so looking back at how the election played out, yes, your party won, but will you say the APC underrated the Labour Party in any way?
Well, we did not underrate the Labour Party. It was the PDP that actually underrated the Labour Party. We kept saying it. I'm going to play back all my tapes, all the interviews, I granted leading up to the election, all the permutations we made, all the press releases some of us made. We kept saying that Peter Obi was the biggest favor to Asiwaju, and the best, the pathway to the presidency for Asiwaju was Peter Obi clearing the road for him. And we were proved right. So there was no time. I want you to know that there was no time we wrote off Obi, but we knew Obi was not going to win. And so we never, ever, projected Obi to win. But we projected Obi to decimate PDP. And he did actually decimate the PDP. So, there was an interview I granted, and I said it on a lighter mode, that the day Asiwaju will be sworn in, and I said this way back in December, that Peter Obi should be given a front row seat during the swearing in because he will be one of the biggest factors that aided Asiwaju to become the president of this country. So, and that's why I tweeted about 2 days ago, and the thing went viral, that maybe the pastors who saw visions, and with all respect to them, that Peter Obi was God's chosen one, they didn't know that God raised Peter Obi for a purpose, and that purpose was to make Asiwaju president. Peter Obi was a means to an end, but he was not the end in itself. God raised Peter Obi for the purpose of Asiwaju becoming the president of this country, and it has come to pass.
All right, so looking back at how Nigerians were, really anxious to know the final result of that election, especially the presidential election, for you, was there any time you were scared on election day and during collation of results that your party will lose the election in the final analysis?
Look, I was always confident, There was an interview I granted on another station, I think a week to the election. And go back and play that tape. I said, I have never been so confident in my life. Even in 2019, I wasn't that confident because I was also the chief spokesperson in 2019. And I told Nigerians a week to this election that I had never been so confident about this election. And why did I say so? I gave reasons. It wasn't because of arrogance. No. It was because of what we saw, on the table. And what did we see on the table? We saw that one particular party broke up into 4. How did they expect to win? I'm still asking these questions and nobody is giving me answers.
How did a party who broke up into 4, and a party that did not win in 2019, a party that came second that would beat by 4 million votes, that party now broke up into 4. That's a simple logic. Kwankwaso left, Peter Obi left, all of them are birds of the same feather, they are from the same yoke. Despite all the struggle, all the attempt to make sure they say PDP and APC are the same. No, it's actually a Labour Party and PDP that are the same. Peter Obi was the running mate to Atiku Abubakar in 2019. Tell me how has Asiwaju got anything to do with PDP since 1999? Asiwaju has been the biggest headache to PDP since 1999. And today, he has proved to be the complete, the final death knell for that party. He has become president-elect. So, and then, apart from breaking up into 3 originally, the original PDP, headed by, Atiku Abubakar became, the flag bearer. You had Peter Obi pulling out. You had Kwankwaso pulling out. Then even the shell left, that shell of PDP, you now had the G5 pulling out again of that shell that was left. How did anybody expect any of those shrapnel to win the election? I am asking that question till today. They just engage in name-calling, abusive words, but then nobody is looking at the science of it, the mathematics of it. This is not about noise. It's about the figures. Let's look at the figures. How were they expected to win? Peter Obi, who came the distant third, that we beat with close to 3 million votes, is today saying that he won the election. How did you win the election? Look at the heat map of the voting pattern. He struggled to a particular point in this country where you have predominantly one particular religion and stopped there. He could not proceed beyond that point. That's the kind of campaign he carried out, and he got the results of the campaign that he carried out. Atiku Abubakar was playing on northern sentiment, saying that they would betray Asiwaju, kept preaching messages of hate in the north, and that is what happened. Look at the results. The results stopped him in the north. He lost in the entire south. Asiwaju was the only Pan-Nigerian candidate preaching peace, trying to bring the country together. And today the results show that he had So, coming back to your question, there was no time. No time. I, as a person, if you're asking, maybe someone, you see, a day to the election, people were calling me, even very staunch party members. They say, what do you think? I said, calm down. I had looked at it, I worked it out, and guess what? I didn't tell Nigerians this. 2-3 weeks at the time, we sat down, a small team of us, around Asiwaju, we sat down, and we made different permutations, and we gave ourselves the worst case scenario, depending on results that we had in this country before. And the worst case scenario put us 2 million ahead of Atiku, the closest rival. That worst case scenario. And guess what happened? That's exactly the result that came out, about 1.9 or 1.8 million ahead of Atiku. And so we got our permutation spot on. And that means that if you look at the results, really, APC, with its strength and wide reach and all of that, actually got the worst case scenario that it could have. The result that that the APC got. We had 20 governors, not APC governors, but 20 different governors that lost elections in their states, including APC governors. Our traditional states before, like Yobe, Kebbi, Gombe, we won. We lost those states. Even the gap, the margin we got in Borno was not as wide as the kind of margin we used to have in Borno. Look at Katsina, the president's state, we won it. So who on earth can come and say this election was flawed? Now you see them planting stories all over the world now with the aim of delegitimizing the election of the president-elect Asiwaju. All those you see articles planted in various newspapers across the world in order to give it some type of international flavor. They plant it in one newspaper in New York, in London, Nigeria's flawed election. When those people have nothing, they don't know anything about the demography of Nigeria, Nigeria's flawed election. What is the flawed election? Flawed election is that, there was no automatic transmission. That is the flawed election. Let us look at the law. We are going to look at the law tonight. What's the meaning of that? How does that make it flawed? Does that affect the results that people got from the Nigeria units, party agents? They should bring those results out. And you see them paying international journalists to write all kinds of rubbish about Nigeria. We are waiting for them to come here. Let us show them the facts. We are going to the tribunal. and then they will see the facts. It's, it's not about noise. Law for law, result for result. That was why you can see that a few days ago, they were independently collecting results as they were uploading the results. INEC. The Peter Obi supporters were uploading results themselves, calculating. When they saw that Asiwaju was leading by a wide margin, without even his core states, his home base, coming into that calculation, they abandoned the calculation and brought it down and said, on legal advice, they were told not to proceed with the collation. Real-time collation they were doing for the world to see. Is that not the same thing they were accusing INEC of doing? They say, okay, after the process, we are going to calculate it. Why not continue for the world to see? Hypocrisy and fraud everywhere. And they have the temerity. People who did not even deserve to get as much as they got. People who played on our fault lines. Who got as much as they got, and they should be thankful to God that they got as much as that. Coming to have the temerity to say they deserve more. It's quite unfortunate.
All right, Mr. Keyamo. Now, let's talk about the conduct of the election itself. How will you assess INEC's performance?
Let us start from, what the Nigerian Bar Station, my parent body, said. I've looked at the report of the NBA, and the NBA said, look, it has scored INEC extremely high in the conduct of the election. I think they scored more than 80%, and they said only 8% of voters that thought that, well, they were not satisfied with the conduct of the elections. INEC used technology for the first time that made sure that you do not bring out results that do not reflect the people that were actually accredited, which had always been the bane of this country. Inflated figures beyond the people actually accredited to vote. And when you see the numbers, a bit moderate this time and coming down, it's because of that technology. It's because of that technology. So, if you look at the provisions of the law, especially the Electoral Act, it envisages, that law envisages that in a country where you have, for example, more than 176,000 polling units, the law envisages that you will have some kind of problems from one place to the other. The law envisages that. And that is why, if you look at the grounds upon which you challenge an election in Section 134 of the Electoral Act, it keeps harping on the fact of substantial compliance with provisions of the law. And that word is used advisedly, substantial compliance. Why does the law, if you go to India, you go to America, you go to everywhere in the world, they use that substantial, not total compliance. And so once you have substantial compliance, you have a pass mark. Substantial compliance means, of course, that whatever has happened has not affected the outcome of the result. And so when you go to the tribunal, go to anywhere, what they insist upon is the result. What happened? Does it affect the results? In other words, you have to first of all show that this is the result I got from my polling agents. And that whatever happened has changed substantially the result of the election. That's all you need. That's all you must show that. So when somebody came, like one of the candidates said this morning, I'm not challenging the result. I'm challenging the process. What does that mean? How did that creep into, political jurisprudence? When? How? I'm challenging the process. The law talks about the results, the final outcome. What you are complaining about, does it affect it? You are saying that, oh, well, there was no real-time uploading of results. So, if there's no real-time uploading of results, and take note, that is not in the Electoral Act. I'll come to that. That's a directive contained in their guidelines, Section 30, Article 38 or whatever of their guidelines. It is not in the Electoral Act or the Constitution. Now, you said that there was no real-time. Now, when it is finally uploaded, finally uploaded, bring your results and compare whether it has changed the results. That is what the law says, results, not process, results. So, once the result substantially reflects what was put in those ballot boxes. Election democracy is about what was dropped in those ballot boxes and counted. Once what was counted does not detract finally from what was announced, you have a good election. Because it is not only by transmission that you calculate the results. It's not only by that you transmit. There's also a provisions in the Electoral Act. Go and read from section 40-something down to 70 that talks about the stage-by-stage collation. From the local from the PO, from the polling unit, you take the BVAS machine plus from ECATA, you take it to the ward level. From the ward level, it's even at the ward level that all complaints are entertained at that stage. For example, it is because of the calculation at the ward level, that is why they made the issue of even the automatic transmission at times. Because if there's any discrepancy at the ward level, at the collation center at the ward level, between from ECATs that are presented and what have been transmitted, then the ward collation officer will now have a decision to make at that point to say, well, what you have brought is different from what was uploaded. And so he can then make a decision at that point. But on and on from that point onwards, every other officer is just a collation officer. You don't have any right to begin to inquire into complaints, even up to the state collation officers and the national collation officer, which is the national chairman. Now, they point to a particular provision, I think section 68 or whatever, if I'm right, that says then INEC has powers to look into complaints. They have 1 week, 7 days to look into complaints. Now, when you say the commission is not the national returning officer or the national seated as a national collation officer. I mean, it's not that. That is not the commission. It's not the commission. The commission must be either the board or some bodies that will be put together. But that cannot happen unless there is a result. And that was why the chairman kept saying the result has to be, the process has to, has to go through first. And the result must be announced. And they will look at it. And then at the end of the day, if there's no substance, the rest will go to court. But the national collation officer has no powers to stop the process midway. Midway, the law does not provide for that. His duty stated as a national collation officer is to collect all the results brought in by the recs and make a return. That's his power at that stage.
All right, Mr. Keyamo, and electronic transmission of election results.
Look, the process by which INEC said they were going to transmit electronically was a mere directive given by them in their manual. It's not in the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act still provides for the stage-by-stage collation of the result up to the National Collation Center. Now, if you look at the grounds upon which you can present a petition, the whole of this noise ends up in what is the ground upon which you can present a petition. Go and look at section 134 and 135 of the Electoral Act. Now, if INEC, for instance, says they brought out a statement a day or two after that, they are facing technical glitches. Now, a simple question I want to ask is that, would it mean that once there's a technical glitch in uploading results, even though the results have not been altered, I repeat, even though the results have not been altered because agents, they have the various ECATs with them, signed by the agents, would it mean that the entire exercise will be cancelled when there's a clear, real, original, alternative way to confirm the veracity of the results? Because don't forget that this directive given, if you look at section 134, 135 of the Electoral Act, it says that any non-compliance with a directive given by the Commission that does not, detract from the law itself. Go and read it, of the Electoral Act. That directive, in fact, that law, the law uses the words directive or instruction, those two words, which is what this whole, noise about transmission is about. It's a directive. Because if you look at the manual, it only gives directives to their agents as to how to transmit those results. It is not in the Electoral Act. But the law has addressed that issue, that any non-compliance with directives by any officer of the commission does not invalidate the conduct of the, it will not. It's very clear about that. That it will not invalidate the conduct of the elections. So the law has anticipated that itself. The law has anticipated that. And somebody said, well, people keep saying that, well, we want to do justice, we don't want to quote law, you are quoting law too much. What are we talking about? Is justice blowing in the wind? Justice is anchored on law. Justice is not anchored on the whims and caprices of anybody. And that is why laws are made, because the justice must be done according to law. And that is the law we are quoting, whether the justice is in accordance with the law. So all of this noise is between you and me, and I say this with all respect, is a big storm in a teacup. There's really nothing to it. And that is why, if you look at Peter Obi this morning, he has seen the results himself. And that he's changing the tune to say, I'm not challenging the result, I'm challenging the process. What's the meaning of that? Challenge the result now. So you are challenging process. But so you confirm that results are correct. It's a journey to nowhere. Right. I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Keyamo. Now that the opposition parties have gone to the tribunal, what is the APC approach?
We are waiting for them. They are not gone. That is why you can see I'm at liberty to even discuss some of these issues, because I'm not going. But no petition has been served on anybody. So we are waiting for them. And then, just to address one issue again, I think Section 74, if I'm correct, that says that the commission has about 2 weeks, 14 days to grant the request of any party that wants to ask for documents or materials. That the Resident Electoral Commission has 14 days. That is the law. They say within 14 days. So all of this noise at times that they're using to put the system under pressure to say they want to occupy INEC offices and all of that, it's just actually, they just grandstanding. It's grandstanding. The law says within 14 days. Go and look at the law. That they have 14 days to make all the materials available to them. And they are still within 14 days.
All right, so this leads me to my next question. And if I'm correct, the APC has decided to cross-appeal and inspect ballot materials from areas won by the opposition. Are you expecting empirical evidence of rigging from some states won by Atiku and Peter Obi?
Let me not let the cat out of the bag here. We have also asked for inspection. So we have been granted access to inspect the documents by INEC. And when we get the documents, we'll take it. When we get all the materials we need, we'll take it from them. We want them to serve their papers if they want to. If they are serious about going, to the tribunal. Because I'm sure that after inspecting the documents by INEC, the INEC provides for them, I am sure they will give up and they may not file their petition again. They may not. They may run away.
All right then. So how hopeful are you about validating the APC presidential mandates before the courts?
Look, the mandate by Asiwaju, the mandate freely given to Nigerians, given by Nigerians to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is one of the most acceptable, one of the most credible, one of the most legitimate mandates ever in the history of Nigeria, closely following that of the June 12 mandate. Because this is a person who won everywhere in the country. From the north to the south, he won everywhere in the country. So we are confident, extremely confident. Despite all the noise going on, we're going to come down at the end of the day to law in court. Law is not sentiment, law is not emotion, law is not what you think, it's what it is at the end of the day. So we are extremely confident. We are extremely confident that going by, jurisprudence of election petitions and decided cases, over the years, that it is like a camel passing through the eye of a needle. If you want to overturn
an election like this that was done by electronic means. People were fully accredited, votes were counted, and then you can ascertain each polling unit result uploaded with the ones you obtain. Now, if there are discrepancies in some, because what they used to normally, gaslight the public is that they will just show one or two results, they will be putting it online. Look at this one, they cancelled it. It is not so. It is not emotions. I'm sorry. What the court will do is, okay, they will now say, okay, deduct all of those ones. If you show 10 polling unit results that were distorted, it will not lead to cancellation. Let us educate the public now. So you sort of start deceiving people. What the court will do is that, okay, they will say, where did these results come from? We are not sure of them. Cancel them. Deduct them from the 2 million votes that you gave the second person. Does it affect 2 million? Does it amount to 2 million votes to cancel the election? That's what the court will look at. The court will come down to that issue, to those issues. Deduct those votes that you are complaining about. Those units you are complaining about, deduct them. The court will not wake up so that you don't, push the country or the public towards a narrative that, well, you have seen a few examples that malpractice took place in some places, and so the whole edifice should come down. The whole edifice of democracy should come down. No, the courts don't work that way. The courts will go mathematically and say, deduct these particular units and see whether the gap between the first and the second is affected. That is what happens at the end of the day.
All right. All right, then I've been speaking with the Minister of State for Labor and Employment, Festus Keyamo, who is also the principal spokesperson for the Presidential Campaign Council of the All Progressives Congress. We've been looking at discussing how the 2023 presidential election was won and lost. Thank you very much, Mr. Festus Keyamo, for coming on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. God bless you.
And thank you very much for watching. That marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But the conversation continues from here. Get in touch with us on Twitter at TVC News NG and at Olajumoke using the hashtag Politics Tonight. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Goodbye.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Maya Angelou was a civil rights activist, poet, and award-winning author known for her acclaimed 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, and her numerous poetry and essay collections. Angelou was born on April 4, 1928 in St. Louis, Missouri. Angelou had a difficult childhood. Her parents split up when she was very young. Around the 1960s, Angelou lived in Ghana working as an editor and a freelance writer. Angelou also held a position at the University of Ghana for a time before she joined a community of revolutionist returnees exploring Pan-Africanism and became close with human rights activist and black nationalist leader Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. In 1961, Angelou appeared in an off-Broadway production of Jean Genet's The Blacks with James L. Jones, Lou Gossett Jr. and Cicely Tyson, and went on to earn a Tony Award nomination for her role in the play Look Away, 1973, and an Emmy Award nomination for her work on the television miniseries Roots, 1977, among other honors. Angelou's career has seen numerous accolades, including the Chicago International Film Festival's 1998 Audience Choice Award and a nod from the Acapulco Black Film Festival in 1999 for Down in the Delta. She published 7 autobiographies, 3 books of essays, several books of poetry, and is credited with a list of plays, movies, more than 50 honorary degrees, and television shows spanning over 50 years. years. She also won 2 NAACP Image Awards in the Outstanding Literary Work Non-Fiction category for her 2005 cookbook and 2008 Letter to My Daughter. After experiencing health issues for a number of years, Angelou died on May 28, 2014 at her home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. In May 2021, it was announced that Angelou will be one of the first women to be commemorated with a new series of quarters from the U.S. Mint.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking